Some of the most dangerous people in your life will never attack you with fists or anger. They will destroy you quietly through manipulation, guilt, and emotional control until one day you wake up and realize you have lost your confidence, your peace, and even your voice, trying to love someone who only grew stronger from your weakness and silence. The painful lesson most people learn after trusting a narcissist too deeply is that not every smiling face carries a sincere heart, and not every promise is built upon truth, because there are individuals who study human emotions only to use them as tools of control. And when a person enters your life with constant praise, endless attention, and overwhelming affection, it can feel like destiny itself has opened the door to happiness. Yet hidden beneath that charm may exist a hunger for power, validation, and emotional dominance that slowly drains the spirit of the one who trusted too freely. At first, the connection feels extraordinary because the narcissist understands how to make you feel important, desired, and chosen in ways you may have never experienced before. And this emotional intensity creates attachment so quickly that you begin lowering your guard, believing you have finally found someone who sees your value. But the deeper your trust becomes, the more subtle the manipulation grows, until one day you notice your confidence fading, your peace disappearing, and your mind constantly questioning its own reality. The greatest danger is not the insults or the betrayal, because those wounds eventually become visible. The true danger is the slow destruction of self-worth that happens quietly while you are trying harder to earn love from someone who was never capable of giving genuine love in the first place. And many people discover too late that they were sacrificing their dreams, boundaries, and emotional stability just to keep another person satisfied. Yet within this painful experience lies a powerful awakening, because suffering has always carried the seed of transformation for those willing to face truth with courage. And the moment you realize that your value does not depend on another person's approval, you begin reclaiming the strength that was hidden beneath fear, confusion, and emotional exhaustion. You start understanding that your kindness was never weakness, your loyalty was never foolishness, and your heart was never the problem. The real lesson is learning that pure intentions must be protected with wisdom, because not everyone deserves unlimited access to your energy, your trust, or your compassion. The narcissist may have taught you pain, but they also reveal the importance of self-respect, discernment, and emotional discipline, because once a person learns to recognize manipulation, they become far more powerful than before. And once you stop begging for validation from people incapable of appreciating your worth, you begin building a life rooted in confidence, clarity, and inner peace. Every disappointment now becomes a teacher. Every betrayal becomes a mirror, showing where stronger boundaries are needed. And every sleepless night becomes fuel for personal growth, because the human spirit has the extraordinary ability to rise stronger after emotional storms that once seemed unbearable. The painful lesson most people learn too late is that trusting blindly can cost them their identity, but the victorious lesson discovered afterward is even greater, because when you finally walk away from manipulation, you stop living for someone else's approval and start living with purpose, self-belief, and unshakable dignity, and that is the moment your life truly begins. Why narcissists often reveal their true nature when it is already too late is because deception survives only as long as comfort and control remain secure, and in the beginning they carefully construct an image designed to win trust, admiration, and emotional dependence, because they understand that people are more easily influenced when they feel emotionally connected and deeply valued. So they study your desires, your fears, your dreams, and your weaknesses, not to protect your heart, but to gain access to it. At first, their attention feels powerful, almost magical, because they know how to create emotional intensity that makes ordinary affection seem unforgettable. They speak the words you long to hear. They mirror your values. They appear supportive, loyal, and understanding. And while you are opening your soul, believing you have found sincerity, they are quietly measuring how much influence they have gained over your emotions. The reason their true nature appears later is because manipulation depends upon timing. A narcissist rarely removes the mask before securing emotional attachment, because once your heart becomes invested, your judgment becomes clouded by hope, loyalty, and the fear of losing the connection. And this is why many people ignore the small warning signs in the beginning, because they are focused more on the beautiful illusion than the hidden reality unfolding beneath it. Over time, the mask becomes difficult for them to maintain because arrogance eventually exposes what charm temporarily concealed. And once they believe your trust is guaranteed, they begin revealing impatience, disrespect, selfishness, emotional coldness, and control in ways that shock the very person who once believed they were deeply loved. And by then, many people have already sacrificed their peace, their confidence, and sometimes even years of their lives trying to preserve a relationship built upon emotional imbalance. Yet this painful discovery carries within it one of the greatest awakenings a human being can experience, because adversity has always been a powerful teacher. And the moment truth becomes undeniable, your spirit is forced to choose between remaining trapped in illusion or rising into wisdom, strength, and self-respect. You begin realizing that genuine love never requires constant self-sacrifice to earn. Basic kindness and authentic relationships do not leave you emotionally exhausted, confused, or afraid to express your feelings, because true connection empowers the soul while manipulation slowly weakens it. The narcissist reveals their true nature too late because they depend on emotional investment to maintain control. But once you finally see clearly, their greatest weapon begins losing power, because awareness destroys illusion and clarity, breaks emotional chains that once seemed impossible to escape. This experience transforms you in ways you never expected, because you stop seeking approval from people who cannot value your heart and start building a relationship with yourself founded upon confidence, discipline, and inner peace. You become wiser with your trust, stronger with your boundaries, and more selective with the energy you allow into your life. The pain that once felt like destruction slowly becomes the foundation of personal growth, because every betrayal teaches discernment, every disappointment develops resilience, and every moment of heartbreak reveals the importance of protecting your purpose, your dignity, and your emotional well-being. And in the end, the greatest victory is not changing the narcissist, but changing yourself into someone who no longer ignores red flags, no longer abandons self-worth for temporary affection, and no longer fears walking away from anything that threatens your peace, because that is the moment you stop living under emotional control and begin living with true power, clarity, and freedom. The hidden emotional traps narcissists use to control your mind and confidence are rarely obvious in the beginning, because manipulation is most effective when it arrives disguised as affection, attention, and emotional connection. And many people become trapped not because they are weak, but because they possess the very qualities that make human relationships meaningful, such as compassion, loyalty, patience, and the desire to see the best in others. A narcissist understands that controlling a person's emotions is far more powerful than controlling their actions, because once the mind is filled with doubt, fear, and confusion, even the strongest individual can begin questioning their own value. And this process often begins with excessive admiration designed to make you feel uniquely chosen, important, and deeply understood. They create emotional highs that seem unforgettable, so that later you will chase those same feelings, even while being mistreated. One of the most dangerous traps is inconsistency, because the narcissist alternates between affection and emotional distance, creating confusion within your spirit. One moment they praise you, and the next they criticize, ignore, or blame you. And this emotional unpredictability slowly conditions the mind to seek their approval more desperately, because human nature naturally craves stability and validation. Another hidden trap is making you feel responsible for their behavior. They twist situations in ways that force you to defend yourself, apologize for things you did not do, or carry guilt for their emotional instability. And over time, this weakens confidence because you begin spending more energy proving your innocence than protecting your peace. They also use comparison as a weapon by subtly making you feel inadequate against other people, real or imagined, because insecurity creates emotional dependence, and once a person begins feeling they are not enough, they often work harder to earn love that should have been freely given in the first place. The most destructive trap of all is the slow erosion of self-trust, because when someone repeatedly dismisses your feelings, denies your experiences, or manipulates your perception of reality, you eventually stop listening to your own instincts. And when a person loses confidence in their inner voice, they become easier to influence, easier to control, and easier to silence. Yet every emotional trap contains within it an opportunity for awakening, because struggle has the power to reveal truths that comfort often hides. And the moment you recognize these patterns, your mind begins reclaiming its strength. Start understanding that healthy relationships do not require constant emotional suffering, and genuine love never demands the destruction of your self-respect. You realize that your kindness should never become permission for mistreatment, and your empathy should never force you to tolerate manipulation, because protecting your peace is not selfish. It is necessary for the growth of your spirit, your purpose, and your future. As awareness grows, your confidence returns stronger than before, because wisdom gained through hardship creates a level of emotional discipline that cannot easily be broken. You begin setting boundaries without guilt, speaking truth without fear, and walking away from toxic environments without needing approval from those who misunderstood your value. The narcissist traps lose power the moment you stop seeking validation from them, because control only survives where self-doubt exists. And once you rebuild belief in yourself, no manipulation can hold your spirit captive for long. In the end, the greatest victory is not exposing the narcissist to the world, but awakening the power within yourself, because when you master your emotions, protect your mind, and recognize your worth, you become unstoppable, unshaken, and completely free from the chains that once tried to break your confidence and silence your soul. What happens when you finally see the narcissist behind the mask is one of the most life-changing awakenings a person can experience, because the illusion that once controlled your emotions begins to collapse, and for the first time you stop seeing the charming words, the false promises, and the carefully created image, and start recognizing the truth that was hidden beneath manipulation all along. At first, this realization feels painful, because the mind struggles to accept that someone you trusted, admired, or deeply loved was never truly the person they pretended to be. And this emotional shock often creates a battle within the heart, because one part of you remembers the affection, attention, and emotional intensity, while another part finally recognizes the disrespect, control, and emotional emptiness that existed beneath the surface. The mask of a narcissist is built to gain trust, because they understand that people reveal their vulnerabilities when they feel emotionally safe. So they create an image that reflects what you desire most, whether it is love, support, understanding, or admiration. And while you are investing your loyalty, your energy, and your hope, they are protecting only their own interests, their own ego, and their own need for control. But there comes a moment when the performance can no longer hide the truth, because manipulation eventually exposes itself through patterns, repeated disappointment, emotional coldness, selfish behavior, and the constant need to dominate your emotions. And when you finally see these patterns clearly, your entire perspective begins to change. You stop blaming yourself for every conflict and start understanding that many of the wounds you carried were created by emotional manipulation, designed to weaken your confidence and maintain their influence over your life. And this awareness becomes the beginning of personal freedom, because clarity destroys the illusion that once kept you emotionally trapped. The most powerful transformation happens within your mind, because you begin reclaiming the self-respect that was slowly stolen through guilt, confusion, and emotional exhaustion. You realize that genuine love does not leave you constantly anxious, insecure, or emotionally drained. And true relationships do not require sacrificing your dignity just to receive temporary affection. As the mask falls away, your inner strength begins to rise because pain often awakens wisdom that comfort could never teach you. Become more aware of red flags, more protective of your peace, and more disciplined with the people you allow into your life. And this new awareness creates emotional maturity that cannot easily be broken again. You also discover something even greater through this experience: the realization that your value never depended upon the narcissist's approval, because the same person who made you question yourself was never qualified to define your worth in the first place. And once this truth enters your spirit, you stop chasing validation from those incapable of appreciating your heart. The heartbreak that once felt like destruction slowly transforms into fuel for growth, because adversity has always carried the power to shape stronger minds, stronger boundaries, and stronger character. Every betrayal sharpens your discernment. Every disappointment strengthens your resilience, and every moment of emotional pain teaches you the importance of protecting your purpose, your confidence, and your peace. And in the end, seeing the narcissist behind the mask becomes less about losing someone and more about rediscovering yourself, because the day you finally see the truth is the day you stop living under illusion, stop shrinking your spirit for someone else's comfort, and begin walking forward with wisdom, courage, self-respect, and the unstoppable determination to never abandon your worth again. The dark reality of loving someone who thrives on your weakness and silence is that the relationship slowly becomes less about love and more about control. Because there are people who gain a sense of power not by lifting others higher, but by keeping them emotionally uncertain, dependent, and afraid to fully express themselves. And the most dangerous part of this experience is that it rarely begins with pain. It often begins with charm, attention, and emotional intensity that makes you believe you have finally found someone who understands your heart. In the beginning, they study your emotions carefully. They learn what makes you feel valued, what fears you carry, and what wounds still exist beneath your confidence. And instead of protecting those vulnerable places, they quietly use them to maintain influence over your mind. Because a narcissistic person often feels strongest when another person becomes emotionally weaker.